Hi guys, my name is Bennett, and I won $1 million in the lottery. Can you believe it? Surely many of you have ever dreamed of winning $1 million. You have to admit it, that's a huge amount of money. I know, you're gonna ask, what am I gonna spend it on? I mean, like a smartphone or a new computer or a console? I would love to have all of the above, but in fact, I have something else more cherished and coveted that I spent my money on. Want me to tell you what it is? Then listen, watch, and don't forget to like the video, write comments, and oh yeah, before I forget, tell me, where would you spend such a huge amount of money? On what? So I grew up with my mum. I don't have a father. Basically, never had one, which means I was born out of wedlock. My mother said that my father disappeared as soon as he found out that she was pregnant. So he didn't take any part in my upbringing whatsoever. At first, I just didn't understand it. And then I got angry, and then I didn't care. I loved and love my mother very much because she did everything for me. I go to a good school, I have a roof over my head, food, and I'm getting ready to go to college. Everything in our family seemed to be going fine until I found out some news. Honestly, it almost broke me because I had no idea what to do or what to do now. My mother worked as a maid in the same house. When she had days off or time off there, she would run to another job, all to support me. When I got a little older, I secretly learned how to make money. Since they wouldn't hire me full-time because of my age, I just worked part-time. So one day, I went to my mother's main job, and she was doing laundry and ironing, and I came home early from school to show off my grades. I really wanted to please her. As soon as I walked into the house, I saw my mum talking to someone on the phone. The speaker was very loud, so I could hear the whole conversation. "Yes, I understand you, doctor. How much will it cost?" "About $700,000. "What? Are you serious right now?" "I understand that it's not a small amount, but maybe you have insurance. Maybe some charity funds will help." "No, I have nothing but my son. I can't get that kind of money." "I'm sorry, Mum, but I got you a $100K discount. I know you're a single mum, but I'm not the reason you're so sick." "Is the diagnosis accurate? How long will I live if I don't get treatment?" "It's hard to say. Some people live for 6 months, some for 6 or 7 years, and some for a week." "Is there nothing else you can do? I have no one to leave my son with. He has not even finished school." "I'm sorry, Mum. I really am." Mum hung up the phone and cried bitterly. As I listened to her talk, thoughts ran through my head in kind of ants. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was my mother terminally ill? Everything was normal, after all. After a moment, she saw me in the doorway and quickly wiped away her tears, pulled on a smile and asked, "Honey, are you out of school already? Did something happen?" "No, Mum, just classes are over." "Why are you crying?" "Just had an unpleasant conversation." "With who?" "You don't know him. It's Mummy's business, honey." "Mum, are you dying?" Mum cried again, and her mute answer made me feel sick. I suddenly realized what the reality is. After all, it's just the two of us. And what would happen if she was gone? My chest began to hurt. I was panting. My mother just hugged me. We came home a little early, and I asked my mother. She turned out to have a rare disease called vesicles. In a nutshell, healthy cells attack healthy cells, negate the immune system, and as a result, a person becomes open to all kinds of infections, and it soon kills them. My mother found out about the diagnosis more than a month ago, but she didn't tell me a word. She found a doctor who took her treatment, but the treatment he prescribed was only symptomatic. That is, it didn't cure, only relieved. According to the doctor, it was possible to attempt to improve her health by undergoing several complicated procedures with special injections, but the cost was around $700,000. When my mother heard the price, she decided that she wouldn't even try to fight for her life, because the money was too much for us to bear. I asked her just one thing: please don't give up. I promised her that I would think of something. Mum just smiled, hugged me, and told me that everything would be okay. But in the meantime, she was preparing the documents for our modest apartment to sign over to me. Because of this news, I didn't eat or sleep for many nights. Time was passing and it was against us. Then I decided to work even harder than usual. While my mother was at work, after school, I ran with the ads and hung them up. Took on any dirty work, including, something to clean, wash, walk the dog, take them to the hairdresser? My services didn't cost much, but who knows? Maybe that's how I would accumulate the money I needed. I stopped taking any pocket money from my mum. We made a piggy bank and I put everything in it. Son, if we don't succeed, take this money for yourself. You don't need to bury me. That costs money too. Keep it for college. You have to study. You have to have a future, not like mine. Mum, it's gonna be okay. Don't worry. You won't get rid of me that easily. You'll have to blush for me at school meetings. That was my way of joking around. I felt awful and inside hurt though. Sometimes I would see my mum have seizures at night. She was squirming and in so much pain. I wanted to just take her saw and throw it away. Even if I had to do it at the cost of my health because it was my mum and I would do anything for her. The adults who took me to work asked why I worked so much. They thought I wasn't fed at home. Rumours quickly spread around the school. Some thought that I was addicted to drugs. Some thought that my mother and I were saving to migrate out of the country. I didn't want to tell all this until one day, the meanest guy in my class said, I saw his mother. She's a maid. Maybe she's pregnant by her master and they're saving up for an abortion. These words made me jump him right out of my seat, throw him to the ground and start punching him in the face. I was barely dragged away. Sure enough, a few minutes later, I found myself in the principal's office. That's where I burst into tears. I told everything as it was, and the principal didn't punish me. Look, Bennett, it's a lot of money, but have you tried a lottery ticket? Are you serious? Well, yeah, what if you get lucky? I've never been lucky. People like me don't get anything for nothing. You try it. My classmates looked at me differently after we talked. Apparently, everyone had already found out the truth, but I didn't care. I had to find the money. A couple of days later, I come home from school and saw my mother, and she was lying on the floor convulsing. I was really frightened and called an ambulance. They gave her an injection and she fell asleep. The disease was progressing. I jumped out of the house and bought some tickets. Not a single win. I just sat on the ground and cried. Our director walked by. He stopped and asked what I was doing. I explained everything as it was and he saw my lottery tickets. You just don't know how to pick. Why? Is there some kind of distinguishing mark? Sort of. I'll show you tomorrow. But in the meantime, go home and be with your mum. The next morning I got to school, and when I opened my locker, I saw I had a lottery ticket. I rubbed it a couple of times and I couldn't believe my eyes. It said 1 million. I just went crazy with happiness. I screamed and cheered. The director saw it and said, this is how it should be. Overjoyed, I wanted to cash the money and the director said he would do it himself because a passport was needed there. Mum was thrilled at the news and couldn't believe it was happening to us. The cash was brought home to me, and 2 days later, we put Mum in the hospital. The doctors performed an urgent operation, injected a bunch of medications. In general, they took care of her, but there was more treatment to come. But the important thing was that we had started. I ran to the school to thank the principal. His door to the office was slightly open. I heard the teachers talking. I think it's right. He only has a mum. We won't be poorer because of this money, but we will save him and his mum's life. I agree too. Bennett is a good boy. I have heard how he works hard to save for his treatment. Tell me, Principal, why did you decide to donate through a lottery ticket? I don't want Bennett to feel indebted, because it wasn't just me who raised the money. It was you and almost 1 million other people. I just talked to the right people, so we closed the collection in a matter of days. Everyone donated, then $5,000, then $2,000. If possible, but we will save a person's life. I hope so. You know, what I heard struck me. How cool the people around me are. I thanked them all, wrote a letter, and distributed it online because my mum was saved. The money we raised was more than enough. We were even able to pay off some big debts later. So who says there is no such thing as a miracle? Tell me guys, did you like my story? Write your opinion about it in the comments down below the video. Don't forget to give it a like, share the video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel.
Hi everyone, my name is Ralph. I want to share with you the story of how I adopted my son, but it got out of my way. I tried my best to be a good father, but in the end I became his worst enemy. Look at my history and write your opinion in the comments, what you think about this. In general, it was like this. I was 20 years old when I met and fell in love with the girl of my dreams. Her name was Sarah. She was so amazing that my head immediately blew off. I was sure that she was my destiny, so I did not hesitate, and after a couple of months I made an offer. Everything was fine with her until it came to the kids. We couldn't have a baby, and it was a nightmare. Sarah was obsessed with pregnancy and did everything she could to make it work. Sometimes I felt like she was challenging herself and couldn't carry out the plan, which made her feel bad. In the end, when we were running around the hospitals, when the strength and money were already running out, she offered me to take a foster child. To be honest, I didn't like this idea right away, because I believed that we still have time. After all, it's only been a year. I was sure that I just need to try again, maybe stupidly change the situation, and that's it. But Sarah did not listen to me. She ran around all these orphanages and looked for a child for us. She didn't even really consult me, and we had a lot of fights about it. In the end, she chose a boy in one of the boarding schools. You know, his name is Sam, and he was already 14 years old. Yes, this was far from a baby. Moreover, he already had a well-established mindset. He was not stupid, far from stupid, but so sharpened by the fact that he lives only one day. Sam was wild, like everyone else from boarding school, I think. In short, our first meeting with him took place, in fact, already at our home. I didn't go to pick him up from the orphanage. I decided to go to work instead. Sarah was beaming with happiness, but she knew I didn't support the idea. I held out my hand to Sam, and he looked at it like I was showing him my fist, very aggressively, so I took my hand away and went to my bedroom. In the evening we were going to dinner, and I sat down in my usual seat, but Sarah asked me to move. You see, Sam liked my place. I was indignant. They say I had been sitting there for a year, but Sarah asked me to give up the child. Okay, I agreed. After a while, it turned out that he liked my mug, my plate, my razor, my towel, and robe. I became really angry. What else could he like next? Maybe I belong in this house. I was angry with myself, but I didn't say anything yet, so we lived like this for about a week. It seemed endless, and I wanted it to be over and Sam to go back to his room, but I knew it would be cruel of me to take him there by the hand. And Sarah, she devoted all her time to him, didn't even pay attention to me, didn't talk to me, didn't look at me, and didn't even listen. She was fully occupied only, as she said, with our son. But what can I do? I didn't feel that it was ours. He was a strange adult guy to me. What kind of son can he be to me? One day, Sarah ran off on business and left us alone. We sat down to breakfast. As soon as she left, I immediately took out my phone and began to stare at it and eat more. Sam turned up the TV and looked at it. A few minutes later, I heard him rummaging in the purse that Sarah had left behind. The guy took her wallet, pulled out the money, and put it all back. I'm just freaking out from such impudence. Why did you take someone else's money? Not even shy, I asked maliciously, and Sam says to me, it's not your money, I want to take it. I tried to explain to him that this is our money and that he is like our son and so we do not have in the house, but brazenly told me that Sarah is his new mother and that she loves him more than me and that very soon I will not be in this house. And then I burst out. I got angry. I started yelling at him, and then Sarah came in. She saw such a picture, Sam is still an actor, immediately fell to the floor and pretended to hit him. I told him it wasn't true, that he'd made it up, but Sarah wouldn't listen. Well, then Sam said I yelled at him for stealing money when he didn't take it. Sarah reached into her wallet and couldn't find any money, so I told her to check his pockets. Sam turned them out and showed them that they were empty. But how is this possible? I saw it myself. Then Sarah came up to me and felt my pockets, where she found the money. How did he manage to slip them to me and when? Do you understand what happened after that? That's right, Sarah kicked me out of the house. Sam got his way, he pushed me out, and now he had no boundaries. He took my rightful place. Sarah didn't even look at me as I packed my bags, and the nasty guy opened the door for me and waved goodbye with a grin. I was so angry. I went to see my colleague. It's good that he took me in and told him about the situation. Then he asked me to stay with him temporarily and come up with a plan to get back. A colleague said that there would probably be a time when Sam decided to steal from Sarah very big and that this would require proof. Of course, not all at once, but it's worth waiting and catching the moment. First of all, on the advice of a colleague, I wrote to Sarah that I love her, but since there is no place for me in the house, I am leaving for my homeland. She knows where I'm from. It was important that she knew I wasn't here, and that Sam found out. As we all knew, as soon as I kind of left, the little bastard got really fucked up. While Sarah was at work, he didn't go to school, threw parties at our house, drank alcohol, and smoked drugs. I caught it all on camera. Sam stole a car from our neighbors and got drunk behind the wheel. He crashed the car and immediately called Sarah and said it was all my fault. That is, her husband. Yeah, in this state, he forgot I wasn't around. I could hear everything, sitting nearby from behind the bushes, and filmed everything. 30 minutes later, Sarah arrived. She was dealing with the neighbors. At this time, Sam's friends managed to escape, and he took something to cut off. Sarah wrote out a check for car repairs and then went to the house to deal with it. I technically climbed to the second floor and sat next to the window to listen in on the conversation. Sarah told him that I was out of town, and then she cried bitterly, saying that it was hard for her to be with him. Instead of asking for forgiveness, Sam raised his hand to her and slapped her to the face. Sarah was in shock and asked him not to do it, but he hit her again. I couldn't stand it and climbed through the window. They were both in shock, and then I showed them the video. Sam didn't know what to say, and Sarah started to cry even more. Everything was clear. Yes, we got the baby back. My wife realized that we are not ready to raise such an adult child. So for now, we agreed to become parents of our baby, and then we'll see.